We're hot. Yeah. It's 6:30 in the evening. I'll call this meeting to order. Mr. Steve, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Heavenly Father, we love you. We appreciate all that you do for us, even though we too often do not acknowledge your many works in our life. But for that we ask forgiveness, but with full knowledge that you do so much that we couldn't even imagine. And so we pray, Lord, this evening as this council meets and as we discuss the business of our city, that you would give us wisdom, discernment, a direction for the things that we'd be asked to address. We pray, Lord, that it would be for the betterment of our community. We pray for those that serve our community in all the different capacities and for their safety and their well-being. And Lord, we just pray that this community would recognize and appreciate all that's done. And may you be glorified in our lives and in our community. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Join me in a pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you read the roll call, please?
Councilmember Hall.
Here.
Councilmember Chapman.
Here.
Councilmember McMahon.
Here.
Councilmember Hefner.
Here.
Councilmember Brooke.
Here.
And Councilmember Rubel.
Here.
Very good. Everybody's here. We have a quorum. First up on the agenda tonight is the review and approval of the council minutes from August 21st. I entertain a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. Up next is August 29th meeting minutes. I entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. Also before you this evening, presented to you were the department reports minus the financials. We'll table them until next month since we've just handed out today. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the department reports as they were presented to you.
Motion.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Planning Commission report. Mr. Jerry?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. As always, it's a pleasure to be here with you again tonight. We had pretty much a regular meeting last time. The UDO really was nothing to discuss. We will have more information on that as time comes about. Under our new business, there were a few things that were brought to us, and the new business was Moonlight Meadows, and that was brought to us by Richardson Engineering. It was a preliminary plat, and basically it is going to be 559 lots is what it will be. This will come in between 6 and 8 phases, and they expect somewhere to 6 to 8 years to complete this. During that period of time, there was discussion about drainage concerns about the area. There were no concerns by either Richardson or by Bruce and the rest of the staff here. They also are dealing with the entry points for that many homes. There's going to be 3 different entry points for that area and exit points, ingress, egress. And 2 will be on Moon Road. And finally, the sewer capacity. Currently, we do not have the capacity for the sewers for that 559, but when I had a discussion with Bruce, he said that they're working with Richardson Engineering and that they expect that they'll have a new lift station that will be done sometime before the completion of the total project that's going on. And the last thing that was brought up was the Homeowners Association, and they said they really weren't going to have a homeowners association, there may be some kind of fee that they put together that's going to be low activity for green areas that they want to share. And that was pretty much what we discussed during that period of time. There was a motion to approve the preliminary plat, and it was approved 5-0 by the Planning Commission.
Let me clarify your statement about the wastewater capacity.
Yes.
What we're talking about is the lift stations.
Yes.
Not the capacity of the plant itself.
Yes.
Just want to make sure that's clear. What is in the
And it
plans
was-
is they're going to create a lift station on that property that will actually eliminate 2 other of our lift stations. We'll reroute sewage lines to make it more efficient to get to the plant. So we're going to drop 2 lift stations for 1. So that's a better deal.
Okay. The other plat that was brought to us was by Lemon Engineering, and it's Windermere, and it's a 10-acre estate. And basically, the plot showed only basic sidewalks, hammerhead, detention ponds, and fire hydrants. And that was all we got. During that period of time, Chief Reeves did approve a hammerhead for that particular area, because later on it will connect to another road that is in the future we're going to have from that area. Mr. Lemons provided a drainage report to the city, and they're going to need grinder pumps at that location too at the same time. Bruce had several concerns about the property, and most of it had to deal with the drainage in that particular area because it is very low, and if you've ever gone out there, you'll see it. One thing that they did, they took off for about a 15-minute sidebar, and the mayor and the rest of us had another discussion, but they agreed to pre-construction meeting, which I believe you had this morning, did you not?
That was a different meeting.
Oh, that was a different one.
Yes.
Well, but they agreed to a pre-construction meeting prior to moving any dirt at that facility with BJ and Lemons Engineering. They will only use Liberty grinders. That was agreed to at that particular time. The commission approved it on these contingencies. One is that there will be a hammerhead wall. It will be marked no parking, and it will also be striped. The grinder pumps will have automatic shutoff valves, and they will be Liberty pumps. C will be that they will move the front fire hydrant up to next to Wilson Loop Road because it was too deep. The fire chief wanted it up closer to the main road. And that the mayor brought it up, and we agreed it's 12-foot easements so that we can gain access to any of the things that we need to do with water, sewer, and those kinds of things. Again, that was approved by the commission 5-0, and I believe the mayor told me during that meeting that hopefully we won't have contingencies in the future because we'll have a contractor that will be reviewing these notes, and we'll have meetings so that when we come here, we should no longer have those contingencies on preliminary plats in the future.
To that note, we started a new policy today where when the Planning Commission or the Public Works Department gets in a preliminary plat or some other action that requires Planning Commission, the staff is going to review it within a day or 2 or 3 of getting that piece of, whatever it is, and staff it up, see what we have to, and we did it today for the potential rezone. We had a meeting with our staff, we had a meeting with the engineer at the same time to discuss that entire project and see if there's anything we need to hash out, if you will, prior to it going to the Planning Commission. So
Yes.
elimination, probably what we want to do is eliminate sidebar meetings and
Yes.
all this kind of other stuff in the Planning Commission because it'll all be staffed up. Planning Commission will actually get a letter from the city saying, we've staffed this is our recommendations, and go forward from there. It'll make it a lot smoother, I believe.
I think so too, because that one was a long sidebar,
Yeah.
but it worked. We got the job done. We also talked about ACA 1456-422, Arkansas Annotated Code, and now we are required to notify the school district when we have 15 days in advance on any planning commission meetings, also city council meetings, public hearings, and it can be done via email or certified mail. But this is to help them to also be able to plan for student enrollment at the different schools that are part of the Cabot School District. Because, as you say, we've already got 500 and some down at the other end. We have 500 more going here. We still have more coming out there, and the school district would like to know a little bit more about the growth so that they can also plan for their own growth with the district. Finally, we had a rezoning request, and that was from Tim Lemons. We did schedule a public hearing meeting. It'll be next Monday on the 25th at 6:30 p.m. It is dealing with the property on Highway 38 again. This time, it's a little more creative. There will be no ingress or egress on Ferguson. Just to kind of give you, that was the one thing I did hear from when Tim gave the notes to us last time, that there would be no egress or ingress on Ferguson. I just want to remind you of that, okay?
They changed that, and I'll explain.
You changed that today?
No, they changed it on there, what they've presented, that you have gotten probably a copy of by email. The commercial area is up off of 38 only.
Yes.
The residential area behind that is one road in back off of Ferguson, but it's residential only.
Okay.
You will not be able to access the commercial area from the residential.
And that was the difference, is because they decided instead of trying to create the whole thing is to C2, they would only take a portion of it out right along the highway, and the rest of it would remain as it's R1 as it is.
It'll be presented Monday night.
Yes, and we'll do that on Monday night, and I encourage you all to come if you'd like to listen to the public hearing. There is no action required by the council tonight, and that's pretty much my report, unless any of you have any questions.
I have questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Those grinders in Windermere, who's going to be responsible for replacing and fixing and whatnot?
I believe we are, and that's why we're standardizing everything. Wasn't that what we were
No, sir.
looking to do?
No, sir. It'll be in their builder's assurance that they have a one-year
okay.
Manufacturer and contractor's warranty. And once that's, and this is standard, once it's after 1 year, it's their responsibility.
Okay.
Okay, so how do you do a new engineering study in that whole area? With the
For what?
city engineer,
For what?
to see about the drainage and stuff, and if these grinders are actually, because
Well,
I don't
that'd
like
be-
these grinders.
Well, they actually are much better for sewer system. They create a slurry instead of solid waste. going
Right.
down. They're much more efficient for the whole entire system.
Possibly, but the homeowner not knowing they even have one
The homeowner on these, because it'll be in their bill of assurance,
in 10 years, if they have sold the house and
it still transfers with the ownership. Same way with with a hot water tank, same difference.
My thing is you're making them go to one type of grinder pump.
Right.
If the city's not responsible for the grinder pump, then it shouldn't matter.
That's kind of standard about any city that makes a grinder pump, is a set standard of what it is, so everything's the same thing.
Yeah, and it just makes it easier for Bruce for maintenance more than anything, is to have all of them being Liberty pumps. That way, when you come to ordering and things like that, you can have them much easier that way.
But
They're not maintaining them. City's not maintaining them.
We can still set a standard for what pumps we want.
is that the UDO?
It will be, yes.
It will be. It will be in the UDO.
So he-
but-
he
So
gave you-
when we get the UDO back, okay, I can promise you there'll be a lot of discussion, I'm sure, with this, our commission and the staff about the UDO.
So he
once it
gave
gets here.
you a report on the drainage?
It was given to the city. Bruce, I believe, got the report that Tim Lemons
You're mixing
submitted.
apples and oranges. The drainage report is stormwater drainage,
Uh-huh.
not sewer drainage.
Yes.
The
Okay.
sewer drainage is, there's no enough fall in the sewer pipes to allow for gravity. That's why
Okay.
you have to have grinder pumps.
Yes.
And there'll be a lift station out in that area
Right.
for that.
And the concern that they had was mostly from runoff. That was the biggest concern. And so they were working on the detention pond and expanding that area, and also I believe he wanted to have a concrete buttress up against the side of the road so that it would not wash out at
Correct.
the same time. So that way, if there's too much watering, it's not just going to go into Wilson Loop Road and cut out the road right there.
And this will also, the detention area will also slow down the water.
Yes.
Going to Lily Ann area, which then feeds back off of Brewer and onto the
Yes.
county. Any other comments, questions?
I had a question about the Moon property. Where's that subdivision going to go? I drove out there, I kind of figured it out. Was it next
It's
to
where-
one of the current subdivisions there?
No. You talking about Moon?
Yeah, Moon.
Yeah, you know where,
Moonlight
pardon?
Meadows. Moonlight Meadows.
Yes, I know where Moonlight Metals is, yes. It's going to be right in that area.
it's, you know where, what's the trailer house area
Black
out there?
Oak?
Black Oak, it's right
Yeah.
across the street from Black Oak.
Right across from there. Okay.
It's a large piece of property, yes, sir.
I can bring it up on screen if you need to.
Will the,
You want to see it? All right.
will the street infrastructure be able to handle all the traffic? That's Peters.
Right across from Margie, pretty much.
Right.
Look like a pretty much side to side,
Yeah.
you know. Got a White House over that's a little
Sold
there on
all
that
of our
side.
residents. Sold all of our residents.
Let's see.
Just very far. See right there.
Hang on, I'm getting there.
We're not gonna go handle the traffic. Traffic will go in, on a thousand cars. On the, Wilson.
Hang on.
Can't come from your place.
There we are. Okay. Moon Road and Wilson Loop right there. There is Margie Lane, Black Oak. It's all of this land through here.
Across the street from the farm.
I believe at the last meeting I had a graphic up on that.
So that's the existing house and things in that area there? Goes
Right.
all the way up? All right.
Any other questions?
How will the traffic flow?
Well, down Moon Road, we've already contacted the county judge and let him know this is coming. And it's a 6 to 7 year project anyway. But yeah, it's gonna,
Where's the other
That's not-
exit though? You said there's two on Moon Road, but where will the other go? That's,
One comes out on 38.
Well, how?
how?
no, it doesn't come out of 38.
Well, they're talking about Moon Road. How do they
Well, I
do
know
that?
where that comes out, but they said there were three exits, two on Moon Road, and where's the other?
I think there are just 2 on
That's the
Moon
little
Road.
10-acre thing, isn't it? No.
Yeah.
It was the one half commercial, half residential.
But this is, right now, this is all county, right?
We'll
It
probably
is-
need
it's being annexed
stoplights
in.
before long. As time goes and we grow, we'll probably need some kind of controlled things on the highway
Well,
during
yeah,
that
we
period of
want
time.
20 traffic lights.
And we have time to do it. Now's the time to at least get an idea for it. And this does go along with our long-range plan.
Talking about over 1,000 other vehicles.
It does.
So
In our
this,
master street plan, Margie Drive is made into a thoroughfare.
so this is going to be mostly lower income,
No.
small.
No.
So they're going to put up nice houses across the trailer park?
Yeah.
Yes. There's some discussion, I understand, with the owners or potential owners of Palm Drive and all that, to buy all that and do something else with it. Especially since this is coming on board.
Yeah, I would think.
Any other questions?
Traffic nightmare.
Then that's my report.
I entertain a motion to approve his report as presented.
Aye.
We- A motion and a second to approve the planning commission report as presented. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Very good. All right, thank you, sir. Next on the agenda is old business. First is ordinance 2023-14. Read the title, please.
An ordinance to define loud and unnecessary noise that constitutes a public nuisance to the citizens of Ward, Arkansas, establishing prohibition and penalties with respect thereto, repealing and replacing Ward Ordinance 2001-04, and for other purposes.
Council, this has been before you 2 times before. This is the third reading. Do we have any discussion? Yes.
Find my button. So in Article 2,
Let me get there.
Section 2B, thought we changed that from 7 to 6 in a previous meeting.
Sounds right.
Section 2, what?
Section 2, no, Article 2, Section 2B, lawnmower, garden tractor, similar home power tools properly muffled between the hours. Thought we changed that to 6.
I
instead
don't
of
recall,
7.
but if that's what you want, make a motion. We'll see what happens.
How about daylight? Whatever time daylight happens. I mean, they shouldn't be out there mowing the
We ought to-
grass.
I make a motion that we change that from that time to be daylight instead of a time.
Can I suggest official sunrise?
Yes,
Because daylight to some
Yeah.
folks may be,
official sunrise.
depending if you're if you're a hunter or not, right?
All right.
Bet you I was hunting 30 minutes before sunrise. Sundown Tuesday.
So we have a motion to change it from 7 a.m. to official sunrise. Do I have a second? We have a discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll make that change. Any other discussion?
I hate to sound stupid, but I don't remember. Is there dogs in there? Is it covered?
No, dogs are covered in the animal ordinance.
Okay, because that's the only issue I have with noise is my neighbor's dog's barking.
That's a different, that's animal ordinance.
Okay.
Okay, no further discussion. Do I have any public discussion on this? Hearing none. Roll call, please, to approve.
Councilmember Hall,
Yes.
Councilmember Chapman,
Yes.
Councilmember McMahon,
Yes.
Councilmember Hefner,
No.
Councilmember Brooke,
No.
Councilmember Rubel.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-2. Ordinance 2023 is approved on its third reading. I'd entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 2023-14.
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Chapman,
Yes.
Councilmember McMahon,
Yes.
Councilmember Hefner,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooke,
Yes.
Councilmember Rubel,
Yes.
and Councilmember Hall.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-14 is adopted and will take effect in 30 days. Thank you, council. Next on the agenda is ordinance 2023-06. Would you read the title, please?
An ordinance requiring the registration of non-owner occupied short-term rental facilities within the city limits of Ward, providing for permit requirements, rules for operating a short-term rental, and for penalties and fines, and for other purposes.
Council, this was up for you last month for discussion. Do we have any further discussion on this ordinance? Any public discussion on this ordinance? Come on up. Please state your name and
I'm Candace Tomboli. I
Uh-huh.
live in Legacy Farms over here across
Yeah.
the street. I am president of the Cabot AMP board in Cabot.
Yeah.
And so whenever this came up, because we're gonna, I think, we're gonna do an Airbnb, it'll be our first one we've ever done. I got to noticing that so I know they're about to adopt a 3% fee for the Airbnbs, and that's across the state. But, so, and I think that'll be, Airbnb will tack that on, and they're gonna have to pay the AMPs, and I don't think Ward has an AMP, so
not.
y'all might, and I'm assuming as Ward grows, you may allocate one of those one day. But the fee y'all have is like 4.25%, which I went through the state, and most of the fees are around 2 to 3%. So it just, if it's gonna be 4.25, is there gonna be an allocation of where that money's going? I know with Cabot AMP, with us being on the board, 75% of that 3% will go towards the Parks and Rec, and then the additional 25% gets allocated for different activities that come up for bringing people into the town to promote the town. So, and, you know, bring more money into the town, so.
But that's the purpose of an AMP tax.
Yes, but I just, with y'all's fee being 4.25, that's steep compared to all the others in the state. And like, is that money gonna be allocated for a certain thing, or is it just for?
There's been no discussion on that, it was just going to general fund, but again, your AMP tax is allocated, I think, by state law
Yes.
to items like you were talking about.
Yes.
And you're right, we do not have an AMP
Yeah,
tax.
but so like if y'all end up getting one because you're getting big, would that money move over to something like
I'm
that?
assuming that if we had an AMP tax implemented in Ward, that something like this would probably changed
Yeah,
to accommodate the AMP tax and not have the franchise or the other tax on it to accommodate that. So
yeah,
if we had an AMP commission,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be a different story.
yeah. Okay, I would just wanted to just update, you know, that the fee just seemed a little steep to me compared to everything in the state.
In the meetings I've been into, that's what a lot of them are going to this.
Oh, they're
You don't have-
adding that? Okay, I
You
haven't
don't
found
have an
that.
AMP.
Yeah.
I think you're right. If we had an AMP commission, AMP tax, it'd be a different story because it'd be like a hotel tax, right?
Yes, yeah. It was 1.5%, but as of last month, they jumped it to 3%.
They being Cabot or they being state?
They be in the whole state. So the whole state now has to give 3%. So, because I'm a restaurant in Cabot, I have to 1.5% for restaurants, but hotels got jumped up to 3%.
Wow, did
Yeah.
not know that.
Yeah, it just
Maybe
started
it's
last
something we want to
month.
think about doing at some point, but not tonight.
Yeah.
But
so-
thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you for your input. I'm sorry, you got it? Well, come on up. Introduce yourself. Although I know you are. But go ahead.
You know who I am. Gabe Beatty with Legacy Farms Development and Majestic Homes. We don't live in the city limits, but we own a property there in Legacy Farms, and we do Airbnb it. I think it's one of the few Airbnbs in the city limits at this time. I'm not sure exactly. I think there might be 2 or 3.
There are.
And so I think I reviewed this, and I'm sorry I didn't come to the public meeting. I'm a little bit behind on this, but I think there's some room for discussion and maybe improvement on. There's a lot of vague items in the ordinance related to, I think, some of the executive powers that are granted to the city, and in terms of how to enforce some of these things. Namely, I think one of the things I noticed is just making the property owner exclusively responsible for the behavior and the conduct of the tenants. And I think there's maybe some law enforcement issues there, because, you know, you're going to be asking a property owner to come and do something that might be only the authority of law enforcement, you know, and say that there is some, I mean, this would be enforcing ordinances or laws on the books with the city. And I don't know that a property owner would have that authority as it relates to, you know, outside of the, you know, the confines of that building. Also, I think too, I just want to speak quickly on the tax. The tax would be hidden from the consumer, and so that would be a hidden tax or a tax on business. And unfortunately, all taxes on business just become a part of the cost of production. So then those taxes are passed on to the consumer unknowingly, whereas the consumer already is aware of the sales tax that is collected by Airbnb or by VRBO or the other companies that run these collectives. But the consumer is aware of that tax, and I think that is moral and ethical on the consumption of goods and the payment of taxes, and the consumer then is aware. But I think this is a hidden tax. Unfortunately, it gets passed on, but there are some economic effects that has with the marketability of the product. And I think, as Milton Friedman, famous economist, said, you tax what you want less of. Well, Ward has very few Airbnbs right now, so we add an additional tax on there. We're gonna, it's gonna become prohibitive. I just think that there might be some room to develop this a little further. I don't completely disagree with it, but it might be something that the council would entertain, staying until we could have some review.
I do know that, and I'm sure you're aware, that the state tried to pass a very stringent short-term rental legislation last legislative session and failed at it. A lot of discussion. I was down at the Capitol for that discussion. A lot of discussion for and against further regulations and ordinances on short-term rentals. Not necessarily Airbnbs, because not everybody has to go through Airbnb or whatever the others are. You could actually just do a short-term rental on your own without anything. So to your point about the responsibility of the owner, that was one of the arguments, one of the discussions at the state level was, not necessarily here, but in other places, it could happen here, but places down in Hot Springs, around the lake, in which they have several houses bought by corporations. And nobody is responsible, no responsible party is available 24 hours a day to, make your tenants be quiet or whatever as best we can. Now, if they are breaking the law, then law enforcement will do what law enforcement has to do to quell whatever the problem is. But the purpose of this is for the owner of the Airbnb or the short-term rental, which is inside normally a residential area next to regular houses, to be called upon to say, this is your house, this is your business, please take care of this. If you don't, then yes, there's some actions we can take further than that, and that's the purpose of it. Not necessarily for the owner to enforce laws, but to keep the peace, if you will. And there's been stories, and you've heard them, of Airbnbs that are renting in, especially in Hot Springs or Eureka Springs, and it's just a drunken melee. Now, we hope that never happens in the city of Ward, but I think we have to prepare for these type of things. Now, having said all that, and we've talked about this, if state legislature comes back in 2 years at the legislative session and changes all this, well, then we're back to the drawing board on how we do business and everybody else too. But I can promise you that most cities are doing something similar to this.
Mm-hmm. And I think if I might
Sure.
have a few more seconds, there's a lot of undefined authorities that become ordinance at the time this passes. We're like pulling water meters and pretty exorbitant fines for an owner not responding within 60 minutes. I mean, it starts at $400, then $900, then $2,000. If an owner doesn't feel comfortable, going to a property, and then where are those lines when law enforcement needs to be called? Is the owner still going to be penalized and things like that? But I think the bigger picture is that I think that the majority of the drive for business for short-term rentals is really going to come from, I think, the Parks and Rec and the upcoming, basically the tourism industry that's coming to Cabot. With the sports complex, and these are traveling families, ball teams, children. These aren't lake towns and tourist towns and beach towns, and we've seen a lot of success with it. We've had no complaints from neighbors, and those are the type of customers we see come in. So I think I think that there's a lot of economic opportunity with these people coming. Rooftops attract retail, and retail, food, services, business transactions. I think that's where the city is going to see a growth in tax revenues, is the influx of people who overflow out of the city of Cabot. And then they're talking about 500 plus families per weekend for somewhere around 40, 48 weeks a year that are going to be using that sports complex. And that's a lot of tax revenue. And I think there's definitely a benefit there, but I think you're going to discourage a lot of business owners trying to participate with that inside of the city limits and ward, and that's going to be a loss.
I appreciate your comments.
Yes, sir.
To your comment about the $400 fine, if you don't respond within 60 minutes, that's not necessarily it isn't what it says. It just says if you don't respond in 60 minutes, constitutes violation of the permit. The $400 and then 900 further up is failure to obtain or maintain a current permit. That's when the fines kick in, not because you didn't respond. And yes, there's some other issues that would go along. You're a responsible owner, but there are not everybody who is a responsible owner. And that's what I would say you will never have to worry about this, you personally, at your Airbnb. But we do have other houses in the city who have been rented on short-term rentals, and we haven't had a problem here. We want to get this in place to alleviate issues later on that we have to then jump through hoops and try to get things going. But
So with Airbnb collecting those sales tax from the owner, how will the city, it's saying paying monthly taxes on total gross revenues, how will that be managed?
just like any other alcohol tax that we have, we remit those to the city. I'm not sure if Airbnb is going to remit those to the city or it's responsibility of the homeowner.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what organization within the city is going to, check those and enforce that?
What organization? The city could.
What I'm kind of speaking toward if you have non-compliant and the city doesn't know there's non-compliant and you have owners who are compliant voluntarily, then who's going to balance the scales for the...
I guess maybe with something we should add to this, and I'll speak with the attorney after the fact, but in our private club ordinance, I know there's a provision in there that allows the city to review their books to ensure compliance of the sales tax on alcohol. We should probably put words to that effect in this also. That we,
so if you have 300 of these inside the limits, who's going to...
We have 300 of these, then we're going to have a separate section probably hired to do just this.
So we're going to grow the government to manage the Airbnb tax?
Possibly, but I hope we don't do that. I don't know. As in a lot of things, this might be tweaked later on. Who knows? I don't know. Mr. Chris, you got anything to add to this, or?
I was going to say exactly what you said, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That was going to be my point exactly, was the audit procedure, just like we do with the private club.
Right, we need to have that.
And that's just kind of a random thing, like, hey, we're getting certain amounts a year, and all of a sudden, we see a change, maybe we need to audit,
Which we have.
Yeah, right. So it's not something that we would do every single year to every single person. No different than the IRS audits. So there are things that trigger these things, one of which being usually a significant decrease in income to the city from what we've seen in the past. We have to say, what's going on with this?
Right. Council, you have any other discussion? I'd entertain a motion to table this. Allow me to go back with the city attorney and do some language on the auditing portion of it before we bring it back to you. So make sure we get the language correct, and then we'll go through a second reading again, modified second reading, and then we'll push on from there. I'd entertain a motion for that.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion to table, allow Chris and I to do some language up. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This will be tabled till next month, and Mr. Chris, when you and I will get together and get some language worked out. And I appreciate the comments. I really do. That's what we're here for. Next on the agenda is new business. Ordinance 2023-20. Would you read the title, please?
19.
An ordinance
19, my
amending,
apology. Go ahead.
an ordinance amending ordinance 2018-02.
Can I pass that up? Didn't have that on the screen. My apology. And I didn't print that. Did you print that out for me? My apology for not having this up on the screen. What this is, council, is just a minor amendment to ordinance 2018-02 to change one line in that code, the adoption of the energy code, to allow us to enforce the energy code on the territorial jurisdiction 1 mile beyond the city limits, corporate city limits, which is allowed by law. The ordinance just said in the city limits, and we need to change it so we can also incorporate that outside in territorial jurisdiction.
Discussion.
Open for discussion.
So my only issue with this is I think if we add this to this ordinance, then the last ordinance that we voted on about the planning commission being able to accept members outside within 1 mile of the city limits, I think that should also be changed. If they're going to be held to the same thing as the corporate limits, then they ought to be able to be in the planning commission as well.
Well, they already are. Our corporate or territorial jurisdiction is 1 mile by law already, which we've been doing for forever. This just allows us to enforce the energy portion in the same territorial jurisdiction.
Did we not just vote on the commissioner having to be inside the city limits, not allowing them out?
We did.
And I think
I
if that's
suggested
the
that we
case, then
allow them to be outside city limits in the territorial jurisdiction. That was turned down. At your request, I can bring that ordinance back up next month.
I mean, has anybody else got any discussion on that?
Oh, I agree with Rob. I mean, if we're going to do this.
Kind of where I was heading.
I guess the only concern I would have is size. Should we increase the planning commission size to,
We're at 7 now.
are we?
Right.
Okay.
I don't
So
think.
how many would we allow for outside the city?
I think the law allows for, there's a limit. I can't remember what, off the top of my head, I don't remember, but we'll put that in writing.
I would want to make sure that we would be within to me, it seems like we need to have a good
I think
big.
7, we can just, and it doesn't have to be anybody. It allows for that. But I'll get the language together and we'll bring it back next month. Any further discussion on ordinance 2023-19? Hearing none, any public discussion? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve ordinance 2023-19 on its first reading.
I make the motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second on the first reading. Roll call, please.
Councilmember McMinn,
No.
Councilmember Hefner,
No.
Councilmember Brooke,
No.
Councilmember Rubel,
Yes.
Councilmember Hall,
Yes.
Councilmember Chapman.
Yes.
3-3, law allows me to break ties. I'll vote in the affirmative to approve ordinance 2023-19 on its first reading.
I'm just curious. I'd like to know what the reasons are for the no, honestly. Maybe I'm missing something.
Any discussion? And they don't have to, obviously.
Well, I get that.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules and put ordinance 2023-19 on a suspended second and third reading.
I make the motion.
A motion to suspend second and third reading. A second?
Second.
We have a second. Roll call, please, for waiving second and third readings.
Councilmember Hefner,
No.
Councilmember Brooke,
No.
Councilmember Rubel,
Yes.
Councilmember Hall,
Yes.
Councilmember Chapman,
Yes.
Councilmember McMinn.
No.
Again, I will vote in the affirmative to suspend the rules for the second and third readings. I entertain a motion to approve ordinance 2023-19.
I make that motion.
We have a motion. We have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Roll call, please, for approval.
Councilmember Brooke.
No.
Councilmember Rupel.
Yes.
Councilmember Hall.
Yes.
Councilmember Chapman.
Yes.
Councilmember McMinn.
No.
Councilmember Hefner.
No.
Again, tied 3-3, I'll vote in the affirmative to approve ordinance 2023-19. It will go into effect in 30 days. Thank you, council. Now, ordinance 2023-20. Read the title, please.
An ordinance authorizing a temporary recreational vehicle and camping area within the City of Ward Sports Complex to establish permitting and reservation process, to establish a fee structure, waiving the provisions of ordinance 2009-01, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes.
Council, as we've talked before, the total eclipse is coming April 8th. There's a lot of things that we need to be doing to prepare for that, and some of you work in other cities, you know what they're preparing. If you've been reading anything in the paper or news, whatever, everybody's preparing for this. The latest population thing I heard was that the state could effectively double in population during this time period, from 3 million some odd to 6 million some odd. They're calling for a 670% increase in traffic during that time, and we're just anticipating lots and lots of visitors. With that in mind, to move forward, we had talked about doing a temporary RV and camping area in the sports complex. This ordinance gives me authority to start working that. You'll notice that I crossed out the conceptual drawing. I'm not happy with it, so I didn't want to bring that forward. Still working with Tim Lemons on that drawing. But this gets it gets the process going. So I'll open the floor for discussion.
Do you have any idea how many spots you're thinking about putting
And the
up?
first drawing, it looked like about 120 spots, but I'm gonna cut that down because I think they're too close together. I don't want them on top of each other. We're gonna be nice and wide open, lots of camping spots just for tents or whatever. We're just gonna do the best we can. One thing they had to go back and redraw was the creek or the drainage area that goes down through the middle of the park. They didn't have that on the drawing, which really wasn't accurately depicted, so they had to go back and do that, and we're still discussing on driving lanes and things like this, working with the fire chief, make sure that we have wide enough and correct and fire lanes and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm not ready to present that to you, but we need to get moving forward, because when we finally get to where we can announce this, I think we'll probably fill up quickly. That's the anticipation. And like I've said before, if we plan all this, and representative from Southern Ambulance, we had a meeting the other day about all this, and we're talking about, ambulance coverage and firefighter coverage and police coverage and communications, and there's a lot to deal with that we need to plan for. 20,000 visitors here, or 5, we don't know. We just don't know, but we anticipate a lot. So with that in mind, any further discussion?
How are you getting everybody in and out of there?
The best we can.
Just that one entrance?
Well, we have exits out the top end, in front of the water tank, and then the other side at the top end.
Doesn't connect to y'all's property though.
There's an opening there that we've used many
I
times.
know that, but it's not.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. We have an opening on the other end, north end of the, we can get people out.
They'll create another entrance.
Yeah, there's also an entrance we can, right on 319, we can pull them out straight off in 319. The idea is that we're going to have a plan in place that if they don't want to do the dump station, assume we have a dump station that is going out. If they want to drop by the dump station first, and they'll come this way.
they're not gonna be coming and going at the same time. So even if you had it, I mean, these people are gonna flex their times out, and so you'll have one or two leave at a time. It's not gonna be a problem, I would think.
Well, on the day of, it's going to be a problem because as soon as it's over, they're going to exit. And that's one of the biggest concerns in the state is a mass exodus and just the bottleneck on the streets, regardless of what you do.
4th of July on steroids.
4th of July on mega steroids, yes ma'am. Any other discussion?
I had a question about permits.
Yeah.
Can we give a discount to ward businesses for their permits?
We haven't even, I mean, in terms of, what do you mean by that?
Well, like if you're going to have food trucks out there and they have to have a permit, if it's a ward food truck like the hibachi one, they would get a discount on their permit, whereas if it was one from BB, then they would pay a full price.
Right, the permits we're talking about in here are mainly for the RVs and camping spot.
Okay, I thought we were going to have vendors and stuff also.
We've asked vendors. We are partnering. We have a agreement in principle to partner with Kinko's RV. They're going to be helping us on this. They're going to have a store out there. They're planning on having a store out there with essentials. I had no idea, I'm not an RVer, but I had no idea that only certain toilet paper can be used in an RV. I did not know that. But they're going to have a store out there. They're also going to have a device where they can go around and dump people's RVs into a tank, and they'll charge for that. So we're trying to, this is fluid. This is ever-changing.
Well, I was just thinking like the donut guy. If he
Right.
has a donut shop out there, give him a discount because he's a ward business.
I'm pretty sure we wouldn't even charge a permit for that if we didn't, but there's nothing in place for that. And, I have went around to all the businesses, and then we created a flyer to make sure they understood this is coming, that they should stock up on their stock prior to this, because I don't think they're going to be able to get trucks in during this time period and get ready for it. Any further discussion? Any public discussion? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to put ordinance 2023-20 on its first reading.
Motion.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Rubel,
Yes.
Councilmember Hall,
Yes.
Councilmember Chapman,
Yes.
Councilmember McMahon,
Yes.
Councilmember Hefner,
No,
Councilmember Brooke.
No.
Motion carries 4-2. I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules for reading a second and third reading.
Motion.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Roll call, please, on suspension.
Councilmember Hall,
Yes.
Councilmember Chapman,
Yes.
Councilmember McMahon,
Yes.
Councilmember Hefner,
no,
Councilmember Brooke,
No.
Councilmember Rubel.
Yes.
Suspension of a reading for readings 2 and 3 hasn't been approved. Entertain a motion to adopt.
Motion.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Chapman,
Yes.
Councilmember McMahon,
Yes.
Councilmember Hefner,
no,
Councilmember Brooke,
No.
Councilmember Rubel,
Yes.
Councilmember Hall.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-20 is adopted. I'd entertain a motion to invoke the emergency clause.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember McMahon,
Yes.
Councilmember Hefner,
no,
Councilmember Brooke,
No.
Councilmember Rubel,
Yes.
Councilmember Hall,
Yes.
Councilmember Chapman.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-20 is approved with emergency clause that goes into effect immediately. Thank you, council. Next on the agenda is resolution 2023-23. Will you read the title, please?
A resolution authorizing the use of a separate checking account for Ward District Court Automation Fund.
Council, during a recent audit we had, that was one of the things we brought up, that we, although we separate and haven't for years, the automation fund separated in QuickBooks, it was their opinion, and they went up higher, and then it was their opinion that we have to have or should have, a separate checking account. So this allows us to do that. Any discussion? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2023-23.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hefner,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooke,
Yes.
Councilmember Rubel,
Yes.
Councilmember Hall,
Yes.
Councilmember Chapman,
Yes.
Councilmember McMahon.
Yes.
Resolution 2023-23 is approved. Thank you, council. Next on the agenda is the 2024 millage breakdown authorization. Do you have that form? In your office? Can you run back and get it real quick? Okay. We're going to take a short sit right here, break while she runs and gets this form. Mics will stay hot, so. All right. Thank you very much. This is our annual millage breakdown and authorization. We have to have back to the county by November 1st earlier. Taxes will be at 5 mills, as they always have been, and the 5 mill breakdown is into the general fund. I'd approve a motion or to approve the millage as it's presented. Excuse me?
Motion.
We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor of continuing with the 5 mills, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Also provided for you tonight is the board water and sewer system financial statements for the year ending December 31st, 2022 and 21 for your reading at your convenience. And we had no write-ups, no findings in this. I need a motion to approve that we received
Motion.
the finance reports.
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councilmember McMahon, do you have any discussion on the youth council?
No, I do not.
I'll take a motion to table it to the next time.
Motion to table.
We have a motion to table. A second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You need to oppose that? No, I'm teasing. Very good. We'll table it next time. It approved. Next on the agenda is my report. The SARTS 4 sidewalk crafting tool has been out surveying the area for the 30% design. That's moving forward. The meter replacement project, base stations are being installed this week as we get moving forward on the Stagecoach and Hydropilla water towers. We did, like I said last time, get awarded $500,000 for the additional, to remove the remaining homes off of vacuum. Bond engineering is working on the application to submit to 80 Arkansas Department of
Economic Development, isn't it?
No, not that one, but
Oh,
to another agency. Go get it.
AEDC.
Bowling Street overlay project has begun on April 28th. We anticipate the overlay portion will begin on September 22nd, and as you approved last in a special meeting, we're also going to do Milam Street at the same time. The TAP award, we're still waiting RDOT's decision on that. Street Aid Committee won't actually meet till December, so we won't know that until January. Highway 319 overlay from 38 to 367. Tentative start date is October 9th. I do have a pre-construction conference meeting to attend on September 28th, and I'll get a better idea when they're actually going to start. And Jamie is gathering all the necessary information for all the city facilities on this energy office, energy performance contract, and revolving loan lease fund that we're applied for. The Unified Development Ordinance, we're still waiting Metro Plan. I got with them this week, asking where the update is, and they're still working it. License plate reader camera, we have one approved by RDOT. They did furnish the appropriate bond that was needed to RDOT from the company, so we should be able to get that going forward and get that one in. They're still working with RDOT on the other three, and we'll get that going. The Consolidated 911 Center, still have not had a meeting about that, but we have to soon. Broadband deployment, I had a meeting with Comcast representatives about their deployment because we had no knowledge they were coming into town. They are laying fiber in Huntington, but will stop soon. As the actuality, they weren't supposed to be there. That was a offshoot of the Cabot build out for Comcast, and they just went too far. But it's a corporate fault, not necessarily theirs according to them. But they are bringing, Comcast is coming through the town. They're going to bring backbone up 367, 319, on up into BB, White County, eventually to Wynn. Comcast is really, really going to expand in the state of Arkansas. But it'll be a little bit before they start divvying out for homes. Connect to First is still plugging away, putting their fiber in. So in time, we're going to have at least Comcast and Connect to First as fiber options for everybody. So that's good. County Broadband Committee still has not met. Still waiting on a report for the water rate study from Arkansas Rural Water. And I did not have a virtual town hall meeting. Some other things came up that night and I couldn't have it, so I'll do that some other time. That's my report, short and sweet. I do have one thing to bring up. Take a look at the screen. What would you think if we talked about a roundabout out at Highway 38 and 319? And this is a conceptual drawing. And before you get too wrapped around in, oh my gosh, what's he doing? This is a joke. I saw this picture on Bing pop up on my computer and I just thought it was cool. So I added Highway 319. You know, it's a joke.
Looks like a good fun.
Or is it? In 2075? Who knows? But if you could look real closely at this picture, it's actually the traffic goes the wrong way. It's England or China or somewhere, I don't know. Anyway, for a little levity, I thought I'd bring that up. Do we have any public comment this evening? The people that signed up have left. I think they, okay. Announcements, public hearing, like Jerry said, September 25th at 6:30. Our next city council meeting is not September 18th because it's today. We're having it already. But we'll do it in October, whatever date it's going to be. October 21st and 22nd will be Little Rock Air Force Base Open House. Harvest Fest, October 28th, 5 to 8 in the Ward Sports Complex, not at the Chamber Building. We've moved it this year. We anticipate some more vendors and better lighting out there and better security in the whole 9 yards. And we don't have to worry about people crossing 367, and that's always worrisome. December 3rd, Christmas parade, tree lighting at 4 o'clock, and of course the Great American Eclipse. Now, I believe you had a suggestion on November's meeting.
I would like to change the November's meeting to the week previous with discussion from council. The November city council meeting is on the week of Thanksgiving.
I second that.
So that's a motion to change it to the,
I guess I'll change it to a motion. but I
okay.
won't-
So change it from the from the 20th to the 13th? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
How does that,
Discussion?
how does that affect the planning commission?
They meet the next week, they meet the fourth Monday.
Fourth one?
They always do, don't they?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, they're always behind us, so it doesn't, that's opening week of deer season. Not deer hunter. Okay, we have a motion second on the floor to change November meeting from the 20th to the 13th. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? One opposed. Motion carries. November meeting will be November 13th. There being no further things in front of this council, I'd entertain a motion to
Motion.
adjourn. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you, council.